November 3rd, 1982. The Hindu Kush Mountains, Afghanistan. Altitude 11,000 feet above sea level. Up here, the air is so thin that just walking a few steps leaves a man gasping for breath. The wind does not blow, it screams. It cuts through the thickest Soviet wool coats, freezing the sweat on a soldier's skin before it can even drip. This is the roof of the world. It is a place of breathtaking beauty. Ideally, it should be a place of silence. But today, there is no silence. The mountains are vibrating. A low mechanical rumble shakes the snow from the cliffs. It is the sound of heavy diesel engines, hundreds of them. A massive convoy is snaking its way up the treacherous switchbacks of the Salang Pass. Kamaz trucks, Ural tankers, armored personnel carriers, they are crawling like a steel caterpillar, nose to tail, grinding their gears against the ice. Inside the cabs, young men are shivering. They are 18, maybe 19 years old. Conscripts, boys who were plucked from the warm fields of Ukraine, the factories of the Urals, or the universities of Moscow. They were told they were going to build schools. They were told they were performing an international duty. But now, they are sitting behind the wheel of a fuel truck, driving through a country that wants them dead. They are heading toward the only way through these mountains, the Salang Tunnel. It is a marvel of engineering. A concrete tube, 1.7 miles long, bored straight through the heart of the granite mountain. For the Soviet Army, this tunnel is the jugular vein. It is the only lifeline connecting the Soviet Union to Kabul. Food, ammunition, fuel. Everything passes through this dark throat. If the tunnel closes, the war stops, and the army starves. But today, looking at that black hole in the side of the mountain, the soldiers don't feel like they are entering a lifeline. It looks like a mouth that is waiting to swallow them whole. Welcome to homecoming scars. We often think of war as loud. We think of the deafening roar of artillery, the crack of rifles, the scream of jets. But some of the deadliest moments in war are quiet, terrifyingly quiet. Today we are not talking about a battle. We are not talking about an ambush. We are talking about a tragedy where the enemy was not a man with a gun. The enemy was invisible. It was tasteless. It was odorless. And it killed without mercy. This is the story of the Salang Tunnel disaster. To understand the horror of November 1982, we first have to look into the eyes of the men driving those trucks. Who were they? In the history books, they are just numbers. Casualties. Statistics. But before they were statistics, they were kids. Let's call one of them Nikolai. Nikolai had only been driving a truck for 3 months. Back home, he learned on dry asphalt roads in the summer. Here, the road is a sheet of black ice. On his left, a sheer rock wall. On his right, a 2,000-foot drop into the abyss. There are no guardrails. If his wheel slips just 6 inches, his truck and the 5 tons of jet fuel behind him will vanish into the clouds. The stress is absolute. For hours, Nikolai has been gripping the steering wheel so hard, his knuckles are white. His eyes are burning from the glare of the snow. He hasn't slept properly in 2 days because of the dushmans, the ghosts of the mountains. The mujahideen are everywhere and nowhere. They hide in the crags above the road. A single sniper bullet can puncture a tire or shatter a windshield, stopping the whole convoy. So the drivers push harder. They drive faster. They bunch up closer together. Safety regulations say you must keep a distance of 50 meters between vehicles. But fear says, stay close. If you get left behind, you die. So they drive bumper to bumper, a chain of steel and fear. By the time the head of the convoy reaches the tunnel entrance, the drivers are exhausted. They are chemically running on adrenaline and cheap cigarettes. The tunnel looks like safety. Inside, there is no wind. Inside, there are no snipers. Inside, it is warmer. Or so they thought. The Salang Tunnel was built by Soviet engineers in the 1960s. It was a gift to the people of Afghanistan, a symbol of friendship. But in 1982, That symbol had rusted. The ventilation system, huge fans designed to suck out the exhaust fumes, was old. It was designed for a certain amount of traffic, maybe a few hundred cars a day. It was not designed for this. It was not designed for thousands of heavy military trucks, many of them running on low-quality, dirty diesel fuel, idling in a traffic jam. The convoy stops at the northern entrance. The commander waves them forward. Go, keep moving, don't stop. Nikolai shifts gears. His truck groans and rolls into the darkness. The transition is blinding. His eyes take a moment to adjust from the blinding white snow to the dim yellow lights of the tunnel. The air instantly changes. Outside, it was crisp and freezing. Inside, the air is thick. It tastes metallic. It smells of unburnt fuel and soot. It's foggy. The exhaust from the trucks ahead hangs in the air like a gray curtain. Nikolai drives deeper. 100 meters, 500 meters, 1 kilometer. He is now deep inside the mountain. There are millions of tons of rock above his head. The radio cuts out. Static. He is cut off from the world. In front of him, the red taillights of the truck ahead blur in the smog. Behind him, headlights glare in his mirrors. He is boxed in. And then, the brake lights in front of him flare bright red. The truck ahead stops. Nikolai slams on his brakes. The fuel tanker behind him screeches to a halt, inches from his bumper. Silence? No. There is no silence. The engines are still running. Hundreds of massive diesel engines are idling, chugging, rumbling. Nikolai waits. He expects the traffic to move in a minute. Just a normal delay. Maybe a breakdown ahead. He lights a cigarette to calm his nerves. He doesn't know it yet, but that cigarette is the last thing he will ever taste. He looks at his watch. 5 minutes pass. 10 minutes. The air is getting hotter. The smog is getting thicker. He rolls down the window to get some fresh air. But fresh air doesn't come in. Something else does. A silent killer is filling the cabin. Carbon monoxide. Normally, when a convoy stops in a tunnel, the order is standard. Turn off your engines. But this is Afghanistan. It is freezing cold outside. If they turn off the engines, the cabins will freeze in minutes. Or worse, the cheap diesel fuel will gel up in the cold, and the trucks won't start again. And if the trucks don't start, they are sitting ducks. So nobody turns off the key. The engines keep running, puffing out gray smoke, puffing out invisible poison. Down the line, near the center of the tunnel, the concentration of gas is rising fast. It starts innocently, a slight headache, a throbbing behind the eyes. The drivers rub their temples. They think it's just the altitude. They think it's just the stress. Then comes the nausea. The stomach turns. A soldier in the truck behind Nikolai leans out of his window and vomits onto the concrete. Nikolai laughs nervously. Weak stomach, he thinks, but then Nikolai feels it too. His limbs feel heavy. His fingers feel numb on the steering wheel. He tries to open the door, maybe step out to stretch his legs, but his legs don't listen to him. It feels like he is drunk, very, very drunk. The panic hasn't started yet. This is the dangerous phase, the euphoria. Carbon monoxide tricks the brain. Before it kills you, it makes you confused. It makes you tired. It whispers to you, just close your eyes. Just take a nap. It will be over soon. Hundreds of men, sitting in their steel cabins, are slowly drifting into a sleep from which they will never wake up. But then, something happens to break the trance. Maybe a collision ahead, maybe an explosion, or maybe just the realization of a commander who sees his men passing out. The order screams down the line, passed from driver to driver, echoing off the concrete walls. Gas, it's gas, get out, get out. And that is when the real nightmare begins. Because when you are drunk on poison and the lights are dim and you are trapped in a tube deep underground, panic is not a survival instinct. Panic is a death sentence. The order to evacuate changes everything. One moment, it was a traffic jam. The next moment, it is a stampede in a graveyard. Nikolai pushes his truck door open. It feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. He stumbles out onto the concrete. The air outside the cabin is even worse. It is a thick, gray soup of diesel fumes. Visibility is 0. He hears coughing, a wet hacking sound that is coming from every direction. He hears the sound of boots scraping against the ground. Men are running, or trying to run. But carbon monoxide is a cruel enemy. It strikes the legs first. Nikolai takes 2 steps toward the tunnel exit and his knees buckle. He hits the ground hard. He tries to stand up, but his muscles refuse to obey. It feels like his veins are filled with lead. He looks up. Through the smog, he sees the yellow beams of headlights cutting through the darkness. The trucks are still running. The engines are still purring. The machines are alive, but the men are dying. This is the physiological nightmare of the Salang Tunnel. When you breathe carbon monoxide, it bonds to your red blood cells 200 times faster than oxygen. It hijacks your blood. You are breathing. Your chest is moving up and down, but you are suffocating from the inside out. Your brain starts to shut down the non-essential systems. First, your balance, then your vision, then your consciousness. Nikolai is crawling now. He is dragging himself over the cold concrete. His hand touches something soft. It is a face. Another soldier is lying on the ground. His eyes are open, staring at the tunnel ceiling. His skin is a strange, bright pink color. That is the signature of the red sleep. Carbon monoxide turns the blood a vivid cherry red. The victims don't look pale. They look flushed. They look almost healthy. Nikolai tries to shout at the man to get up, but no sound comes out. His throat is paralyzed. Panic sets in. The animal brain takes over. Nikolai claws at the ground. He crawls over the legs of the fallen soldier. He is not thinking about international duty anymore. He is not thinking about his mother back in Ukraine. He is thinking about one thing: light. He needs to see the white snow. He needs to see the sky. But the tunnel is long. Around him the chaos is slowing down. The shouting stops. The running footsteps stop. The coughing becomes quieter and quieter until it stops completely. Within 20 minutes, the tunnel falls silent. The only sound left is the low, steady rumble of hundreds of idling diesel engines. They vibrate the ground, shaking the bodies of the boys who drove them. Pause. Hours later, the rescue teams arrive at the tunnel entrance. They are wearing gas masks. They look like aliens descending into hell. What they find inside freezes their blood. It isn't a battlefield. There are no bullet holes. There is no blood splatter. It looks like a wax museum. Bodies are everywhere. Some are slumped over steering wheels, looking like they are just taking a nap. Some are piled up near the exits, tangled together where they collapsed on top of each other, freezing in a final desperate pile of humanity. The rescuers work fast. They don't check for pulses. They know it's too late. They start dragging the bodies out, one by one, 10 by 10, 100 by 100. They stack them on the snow outside the tunnel. The contrast is blinding. The pristine white snow of the Hindu Kush mountains, stained by the dirty boots and oil-covered uniforms of the dead. The cold mountain air freezes the bodies into rigid statues. Nikolai is among them. He is lying on his back. His eyes are still open, reflecting the gray Afghan sky. His skin is that bright, terrible cherry red. He looks peaceful, but the story doesn't end with his death, because now the Soviet machine has to hide the evidence. They cannot admit that they let hundreds of their own sons die because of bad ventilation and poor planning. That would be a weakness. So the lie begins. The bodies are loaded onto black tulips. The Antonov transport planes used to carry the dead back to the USSR. They are sealed in zinc coffins. Why zinc? Because zinc is cheap. It seals tight. And most importantly, you cannot see through it. The orders are strict. Do not open the coffin. A small window is cut into the metal, just big enough to see the face of the soldier to confirm it's him. But the rest of the body? The parents will never see it. They will never know that their son didn't die fighting a hero's battle against the enemy. They will never know he died crawling on a dirty concrete floor, gasping for air that wasn't there. When Nikolai's coffin arrives in his village, the official letter says, "Died fulfilling his international duty." It implies a brave death, a soldier's death. But the scars of the Salang Tunnel don't fade. Back in Afghanistan, the tunnel is cleared. The trucks are driven out. The bodies are gone. The ventilation fans are repaired. And the next day, the convoys start moving again. New boys, new trucks, driving over the invisible ghosts of the ones who came before. Pause. But for the few who survived, the ones who were pulled out at the very last second, half dead and brain damaged, the war never ended. They came home, but they left their minds in the dark. They developed a fear of tunnels, a fear of basements, a fear of garages. Anywhere the air felt still, they would start to suffocate. This is the legacy of the Red Sleep. Today, the Salang Tunnel is still there. If you travel to Afghanistan now, you can drive through it. It is still dark. It is still dangerous. The walls are stained black with decades of soot. The road is full of potholes that look like craters on the moon. Locals call it the Tube of Death. They say that when the wind blows through the tunnel at night, it doesn't sound like wind. It sounds like gasping. It sounds like hundreds of young men trying to take one last breath. The Soviet Union is gone. The maps have changed. The ideology that sent Nikolai and his friends into that mountain has turned to dust. But the grief remains. For the mothers who received those zinc coffins, the war never ended. They were told not to ask questions. They were told their sons were heroes. But a hero's death implies a fight. It implies agency. Dying in a traffic jam, paralyzed by invisible gas, while your own engine poisons you. That is not a battle. That is a tragedy of neglect. Official Soviet records state that 176 people died that day. But eyewitnesses, survivors, and Western intelligence suggest the number was much higher. Some say 600. Some say 2,000. We will never know the true number, because in war truth is the first casualty, and in the mountains of the Hindu Kush, snow covers everything. But why does this story matter today? Why should we care about a traffic accident that happened 40 years ago in a country far away? We care because it reminds us of the true face of war. We are trained to look for explosions. We look for the spectacle. But the deadliest enemy is often incompetence. It is hubris. It is a commander who refuses to turn off an engine because he is afraid of the cold, forgetting that the heat will kill him faster. The homecoming scar isn't always a missing limb or a piece of shrapnel. Sometimes the scar is invisible. There are veterans alive today in Russia, in Ukraine, in Uzbekistan, who survived the tunnel. They look fine on the outside, but their brains are scarred by the hypoxia. They suffer from memory loss. They have tremors. They wake up screaming when they smell diesel fumes. They are the living ghosts of Salang. Pause. Music swells slowly. History is heavy. It is painful, but carrying it is our duty. If you watched this far, you are not just a spectator. You are a witness. You have taken the time to remember Nikolai and the hundreds of boys like him who were erased by the dark. If this story made you feel the weight of that mountain, please hit the like button. It's a small gesture, but it tells the algorithm that these stories, the dark, uncomfortable ones, deserve to be told. Subscribe to Homecoming Scars. We are building a memorial here, one video at a time. And I want to ask you, is there a forgotten tragedy from your country's history? A disaster that everyone knows about, but nobody talks about? Tell us in the comments. Let's bring it into the light. The tunnel is dark, but as long as we remember, the flame doesn't go out. This is Homecoming Scars. Thank you for watching, and tread carefully in the dark.